1.2 Literacy Narrative Assignment Details. Details. The assignments across Project 1 build to the delivery of a 750 to 1,000 word literacy narrative, in which you will discuss your relationship with literacy and describe the impact specific texts and experiences have had on you. The literacy narrative should be written with MLA formatting and citation practices and will be submitted week 4 through USF Writes. Overview. While literacy narratives take many forms, the format of the literacy narrative that will be submitted in week 4 will be a formal, written document. As we move through the process of writing our literacy narrative, many audiences will be engaged. At the core, you are the primary audience for your writing, specifically for a narrative genre, but your peers in the course and the instructor will also serve as audiences. You will review sample literacy narratives from the DALN, and after you submit your narrative for instructor review, you will consider how you would change your narrative for a public audience. You can even submit some version of your literacy narrative to the DALN. Pay attention to the shifts you consider when you move from an academic audience to a public audience, because these shifts will be discussed in Project 3. As you construct your narrative for yourself, your peers, and your instructor, consider how personal you want to be and what experiences, yours and those of the other individuals in your stories, you want to share so that you can work where you are comfortable. Make sure that you are the main character in your story and that the main character develops. Scaffolded assignments. The steps of the overall process of creating your literacy narrative are broken down into assignments that will be submitted in Canvas. Because this is a composition course and the writing process is part of our content, time is spent on the elements of writing that are not necessarily explored explicitly in other courses. We are mentioning this again because it is important to recognize that the content related to each assignment will be included in each of the readings, and that all the tasks will build upon each other to support your construction and submission of the literacy narrative. The building process makes sense in theory, but in practice, it can feel like the whole assignment is not immediately clear yet. While Project 1 builds to the construction and submission of a literacy narrative, the individual tasks include the development of individual skills and practice-related concepts, so don't overlook the individual value of each assignment. The literacy narrative is the frame for the work of close reading, annotation, summary, response, and outlining, but the narrative itself is only one assignment within Project 1. By culminating in the literacy narrative, the work of Project 1 and all of ENC 1101 is cumulative. But the concrete construction of the literacy narrative does not begin in earnest until week 3, when the content you have been submitting is arranged into the outline in 5.2. For all 3 of the projects, the content will roll out over a number of weeks, with the skills building and spiraling across the term so that everything is intentionally connected. In practice, this means that looking ahead in the project is useful, but focusing on the content readings for the current assignment you are working on will be more productive than worrying about the assignments they build over the weeks to come. Just like learning to look for resources in the course content and beyond, and learning to ask for help when you hit a wall, learning to navigate the useful confusion needed to reach comprehension and the anxiety that can result from feeling uncomfortable without clarity is a vital skill and a necessary part of learning. Learning something means shifting from not knowing to knowing. And the step in the middle is often confusion. When the thing you are learning is a complex process, it can take weeks for the elements to click and click together. If you have questions after a reading, ask your instructor. But if you just have an overall sense of anxiety that you are encountering things you don't know, that's because you are learning, which is a good thing and is the goal of being here. Constructing the literacy narrative. To construct a literacy narrative, we will engage short readings and complete brief assignments. We will practice reading and annotating texts and explore sample narratives. We will outline and answer questions intended to explore our literacy experiences and look for connections across those experiences in an effort to locate one overarching outcome or impact of literacy in the formation of who we are today. Although this is your story, you will be collaborating with peers in a number of ways, most of which will come in the form of sharing your attached assignments through posts in Canvas threads on discussion boards. Once you have outlined and drafted your literacy narrative, you will have the opportunity to review and revise your paper. The practice of using a checklist to review your paper and the process of self-review will allow you to develop a strong literacy narrative for submission. The final narrative will be submitted to your instructor for review. After you submit your final literacy narrative, you will reimagine your narrative as public, perhaps even uploading it, and take some time to reflect on the process. Beginning to consider your relation to and with literacy will serve as the foundation for the subsequent assignments in which you will take a deeper dive into the exploration of individual and collective communication practices and processes, all with the intention of understanding and developing the main character in your story. Format. Knowledge of the conventions used for documenting source material and formatting your assignment is part of successful university-level writing. Fortunately, you are not expected to memorize that knowledge, but only to have a working knowledge and the willingness to locate credible sources and apply the knowledge before submission. Stated simply, you must use MLA guidelines carefully and correctly, but you are able to look up all the answers all the time. Following formatting expectations only requires spending the time and energy necessary to follow basic directions. Ample content is spread throughout the internet on numerous EDU sites that you will learn to navigate as you complete written assignments for courses for years to come. Resistance is futile and costly. Simply look up the formatting expectations and do the work. For the literacy narrative, direct source material is not required, but is allowed and should be cited in the text and referenced in a works cited page in accordance with MLA style guide expectations. Proficiency with formatting is an expectation for all university level writing, but different assignment requirements result in different formatting requirements. For instance, if you do not use direct source material for your literacy narrative, your submission doesn't require in-text citations or a works cited page. If you do use sources, you need both. Either way, pagination, your last name and your page number in the top right, and general formatting expectations, such as your information at the top left, margins, paragraphs, and double spacing, are required. Different style guides will be used depending on the discipline in which you are writing, but the general concepts of attribution and organization apply across all academic writing. The goal of learning to write in MLA is not simply to learn MLA style expectations, but to learn the value of sharing a standard style that guides the overall approaches to the use of source material. Once you learn to work with MLA, shifting the details to fit the expectations of another style will be far less daunting. Projects 2 and 3 will require the use of sources. So documentation will be discussed explicitly in those sections. If you want to use sources in your literacy narrative, check any credible source like USF Writing Studio or Purdue OWL. Assignment 1.2. After you read the assignment details closely and carefully, think through your approach to the construction of your literacy narrative. Then preview Project 1. See all content links. Once you have digested the material, craft a considered response for each of the following. Responses should be in complete sentence and follow conventions of formal academic writing. Post a response for each of the following in Assignment 1.2 in Canvas. 1. Where will you do the reading? 2. Where will you write and store assignments? 3. When and where will you work? 4. What are the main details of the assignment? 5. What did you learn from previewing all the P1 activities and tasks? 6. What calendaring technique or technology will you use to plan the next 5 weeks? 7. Describe this assignment in one sentence for a defined audience. 8. What will you need to succeed in this assignment? 9. What terms and concept will you need to understand to fulfill this assignment? 10. What part or parts of the assignment interest you most? 11. What question or questions do you have for your instructor? 12. Finally, do you feel prepared to complete the assignment? If you do, what steps in this preparation process have helped most? If you do not, what might help you feel prepared?